What's up? What's going on? How are you doing? I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Reality. With the holiday season coming upon us, I think that we all in our 20s tend to think a lot more about relationships. Maybe it's those family questions or all those holiday parties. Maybe you just don't want to be alone anymore. Well, this is what I call the cuffing season. Today, I'm going to touch on all of that. Exes, ghosting, and all those red flags that we tend to brush aside when we're navigating this wonderful season of finding our perfect match. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right. So in this episode, I'm going to have three sections. The first section, I'm going to talk about exes and what they mean and what I think they should mean in our 20s. I'm also going to touch on ghosting and why I think it's such an epidemic in people in our age group right now. And then thirdly, I'm going to touch on the red flags. And as always, I'm going to wrap all these into a 1-2 sentence takeaway, summary that I think that kind of encompasses what cuffing season is, why it's so important, and what are some ways that you can go about it to ensure that if you're looking for that plus one, you can find them? You can find the one just for you. But first and foremost, let's get into this concept of exes. Now, in my opinion, I think that exes serve a special place in your life, in your heart, but most importantly, they serve as wonderful learning lessons. I think a lot of us think about exes and you may find yourself going back and embarking on some old past relationships during the cuffing season because it's what's familiar with us. It's like this concept of revisiting the old flame because there's some sense of nostalgia, there's some sense of comfort. We just know them better. So why would we go and revisit and have to draw that out with someone new when our exes are already there? And then if they're single, then there's no reason why you should go and form new relationships with other people because the exes are already there waiting on you, right? Absolutely not. No. In my opinion, this is my podcast. So the podcast that I like to share my thoughts on the world on. I think exes are a good place to start when you're thinking about cuffing season because they start and they kind of generate the core memory of what it means to go in that pumpkin patch, what it means to have that plus one at the family Christmas party, to go through these holidays and have someone by your side. Typically, because you've already done that with this person. So you kind of associate all of these memories with this person. But the number one thing that you can do to hurt yourself and to hurt the ex friendship, if you all are friends, highly don't recommend that, but I'll get to that later. But if you all are friends, if you have mutual friends, best way you can hurt this relationship is to prematurely revisit that relationship after you all have broken up. This whole idea of the one that got away, I don't understand where that comes from. I just think that's just form that stepping stone into learning more about yourself, who you are, what you like, what you don't like. It's kind of like an internship, not to get all, what's the term, fundamental here, but I feel like you date people in your 20s to figure out what it is you want from a relationship. Explore your partners, explore for some people, maybe their sexuality. This is what exes serve as. They don't serve as stepping stones for you to go back to. I'm myself was caught up in this because I would find myself going back to an old situationship or an old relationship when was down in the dumps and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But that was because I couldn't understand and couldn't face the void of being alone. I would always have to go fulfill my time or do something with someone else from the past. And just one thing I did learn there is that you're not giving yourself enough time to separate from that person. I learned this in counseling one day is like your past relationships, the past people in your life that you're trying so hard to break emotional ties from, they're kind of like these sugar caves in your brain to where when you eat a candy and candy over again, you're gonna like want more and more candy. Same concept here. When you continue to stimulate your mind and think about your ex, these past situationships, when you're in cuffing season, you're just craving that person's time more. You're wanting to do more time with them. And then you get bombarded by this whole notion that there was a whole reason why you all just didn't work out. But when you spend more time with them, you're like, oh, let's revisit all these memories that we did, which is awesome. Great. I think everyone has a special place in your life at a certain time. Like everyone comes in and comes out of your life at the right time. but that doesn't mean that it's going to be okay in the long run. You may have a great pumpkin date in the start of cuffing season, but by the time Christmas comes around, you're back to bickering and fighting, which is why you all broke up, or that's why you ended the situationship to begin with. So I just want to say that because I don't think that we give enough thought to the fact that revisiting past relationships, visiting past situationships in the midst of cuffing season is one of the worst things we can do for ourselves. Emotionally, physically, it just doesn't allow us to grow. And like I always say, the 20s are the time for continuous growth for our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and God willing, our 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100s. Another element here is that I think social media, if you're not conscious of what you're seeing and what you're putting in front of your face on socials, allows us to cloud the reality that centers around having like ex relationships as friends. I don't even think that you can properly be friends with your ex unless caveat, you all have such a mutual breakup that you all realize like you probably should have just been friends in the first place. So there was more of a kind parting of ways. I just feel like when you have an ex, there's more than likely something sour there that you don't really need to revisit. I also noticed that the more that you remove yourself from this person, which means you're not following them, you're not keeping tabs on their Snapchat story, you're not asking your mutual friends how they're doing. It's not that you don't care about them. Of course, you never want to inflict or, wish bad upon someone, in my opinion, because I'm a harsh believer in karma. I always want the best for people. But these people don't need to be in your life. They were in your life. You learned stepping stone, like I said. They're out. You're gone. They're gone. Remove them. Unfollow them. Do not use social media as an excuse to say, oh, well, they're doing this, they're doing that. I need to get myself back in the mix. That is not healthy. It's not healthy for you moving on mentally because you're never going to grow because you're not separating yourself physically from that person because the mental aspect is still there. You're still thinking the same way. You still act the same way. And in some cases, if you're still in near proximity, let's say you may still live in the same apartment complex, same city, you may still go to the same school. If you see them, you're just going to go and revert back to caused what caused the turmoil, which once, like I said, not healthy. I think that the only way that, if you were to revisit an ex in the cuffing season, it would have to be in a group setting to where you all are still friends amongst groups. I just think that there's so many boundaries that you have to set that it's just not worth it's just not worth keeping that person in your life if you were romantic, had romantic feelings for them prior to the split. Now, you know me, I do like to do a lot of, quick little fact research. I like to learn a little bit more about why our 20s are the way they are. And I found this stat in my show notes here, and it says that roughly 44% of people get back together with an ex, but most don't last, making it more about nostalgia than long term success. I think that this is so important because we're always just trying to recreate the memories. With our exes, it's so easy to do because we've already done them. It just feels like habit. But once you remove yourself from the situation, cuffing season is a great example. Not hitting up your ex in the middle or start of cuffing season, being able to go and do these by yourself. That's one thing that I noticed gave me a lot of internal and personal growth. But then also, if you meet someone else, you can recreate the same memory. You can live the same happiness that you did with your ex, with someone new or yourself. You can still grow and entertain yourself to a whole new level that doesn't involve argument, that doesn't involve spite, that doesn't involve bickering all the time because for whatever reason, y'all just didn't work out. And then also, I think that getting back with your ex during cuffing season is a bad idea because I think that it gives the person or people power that they don't really need in the relationship. Essentially, there have been times where I've heard that people are begging to get back into relationships, then they get taken advantage of because now when you're begging your ex to get back into a relationship, he or she is like, awesome, I can do anything that this person really wants to be with me. But what does this spell? This spells manipulation. This spells lying. This may spell cheating. This may spell only telling half of the truth. Who wants to be in a situation like that? Nobody. So how do you stop this? How do you close this circle? How do you prevent yourself from going down this terrible road? That is by one, just forgetting about your ex. They really don't serve a place in your life other than, I don't know, like I said, if you all are still friends from afar and you've created those boundaries, you all live separate lives now because you know that you all were friends to begin with and you were better friends that way. Sure, they may be cool. You can hang out in a group setting, but you don't need to be one on one. You don't need to try to revisit that relationship because it didn't work out for a reason. So, in addition to X's and the cuffing season in these chronicles, I also think ghosting is a wonderful thing to talk about because it's so rampant in our 20s to where it's like wildfires. I just feel like everyone ghosts people just to ghost them. Primarily because I think there's a sting of ghosting that like hits harder around the holidays when you just expect to have this consistent hangout. Like I said, we've got the fall and winter coming up. You've got autumn is all about making pumpkins, having Halloween. Maybe you want to do a Halloween duo costume. You got Thanksgiving. You got people asking, "Hey Bill, hey Billy, hey Sally, where's your plus one at this year's Thanksgiving?" Yeah, you're gonna have to do another year of that. You got Christmas. Maybe you want to get someone a gift. Maybe you want someone to get you a gift. Maybe you just want to feel cared for. This is why we have this preconceived notion of I don't need something that's gonna hit X, Y, Z, and then ABC, right? But no one does this. Everyone just I think in our 20s, I think everyone's just so selfish with their time as they should be, because a lot of things are going for us right now. I mean, personal life, career life, social life, what have you. But this whole concept of ghosting is detrimental to the dating scene, which I think is why we go back to our exes sometimes. It's because people just want to ghost you just to ghost you. I think that there's a sense of power that people get by, okay, I hung out with Erica this day and I don't need to be with her anymore because I already got someone to paint pumpkins with. Or, yeah, me and Jake, we already came to Thanksgiving together. I don't want to have him around at Christmas. I only needed him to show up so I didn't get grilled by my family at Thanksgiving. This is terrible. I mean, let's be honest, right? Ghosting is terrible because in the long run, no one wants to consistently have to look for a partner. You can say all you want, all you want. I wholeheartedly think, and I know this for a fact for myself, in the long run, I want someone that I can be with continuously and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, is this new person gonna like me? Are they gonna like me? Are they gonna like me? Can we do this? Can we do that? Do they like this hobby about me? No. Everyone wants a long-term partner that they can just ride or die with, go throughout life with, have a consistent life partner. What is the point of situationships? In our 20s, I feel like situationships are just glorified to see if I can go on 100 more dates than you, and I've had 100 different types of experiences that are better than yours. That's not like that just doesn't make any logical sense to me because I feel like every situationship, every person that you meet, every date you go on that you don't pursue for a long-term relationship, it's like you're taking a step forward and then a step back. You're not going anywhere. Versus if you go and you pursue at one date, you have one consistent hangout, one person to hang out with, one person you grow with in your 20s, one person that you don't ghost and you continuously see them. You're able to go on this first date, go on the second date, go on the third date, meet the family. But there's this stepwise progression that I think comes that you just don't realize with ghosting. Continuously ghosting people gets you nowhere. So I don't understand why people do it other than the fact that there is some sense of power that you may have over somebody because you sat there and said, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. And now you made them feel bad. But really, you're just doing it because someone else ghosted you and you feel like you have to get revenge on somebody. Make that make sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Another thing that I don't realize is like tying back to wanting consistent relationships is that you're just hitting the main holidays. And then you start all over again to have a hot girl, hot boy summer. And then you find yourself just as lonely as you were the year before. Maybe this is the call to action nowadays. Maybe this is my calling in the dating scene is to continue to spread the message of what if you just didn't have to meet everybody? What if you didn't just have to match with as many people on the dating apps? Not that I'm not dating apps, that's how I met my girlfriend. But if you would just give yourself one person a month, and if that person doesn't work out, because sometimes you just don't work out, things just don't click, meet someone else. But I feel like before we even get on the first date, we already have this understanding in our head that, okay, this is only for this event, this is only for that event. And then we just ghost them after. What if you are with someone through all 4 seasons instead of just the holiday season? Maybe you'd be a lot more happy in your life and things would be a lot more further in your dating life if you did that for yourself. I'm just saying this because this is what I was thinking to myself before I started dating again seriously, just because I noticed I just wasn't getting anywhere. Nothing was going for me. I had everything else lined up professionally, socially, personally. My life was going well, but I just never had someone there by my side to share the experiences with. And when I asked myself these questions, this is what allowed me to, in my opinion, conquer the dating scene for myself. I realized what it is that I wanted out of my dating. I wasn't going to go back to my exes. I also wasn't going to consistently be a victim of ghosting or be the person is doing it. I wasn't going to ghost people because I wanted to meet someone that would put in ample time and effort to grow and get to know one another. I also want to give another important fact because I was looking around on, just the internet and whatnot using my um, pocket computer. And one thing I did notice or that I learned was that studies show that 84% of millennials and Gen Z, so it's big population, have been ghosted. And most admit to ghosting others too, proving how normalized it's become. 84%. Now, I know you watching or listening, I'm sure you've ghosted somebody, knowingly doing it too. How does that make you feel when you're ghosted? Why would you do it to them? Just food for thought here. It's a rhetorical question, but I'm just saying, if you're able to understand why you shouldn't go back to your ex, why you shouldn't ghost people, in this third section of the red flags you ignore, you're going to be able to conquer your cuffing season and make it a cuffing eternity because you're going to be with the same person and grow with them. But first, before you do that, this third section on the red flags. I wanted to include this because initially I was just going to talk about the two main aspects of cuffing season that I feel like keep it coming back and back each year. But I also was thinking, like, what else? What else makes cuffing season such a bad time of the year for people? And I think it's because of the red flags too, because we do have an idea of what we want from people, whether it be an event or a holiday. But because of that, we overlook so many things that allow the relationships not to work. These red flags. There's this push for having that plus one on a holiday that we don't think about. Okay, could this last outside of this holiday and maybe extend to the next? We don't think about that because we are always thinking in the moment, which I don't know. I feel like everyone in their 20s just thinks only in the present, not about the future or the past. Like people don't use their past to reflect on what they should be doing in the present to plan for the future. I don't understand that. I feel like that's just me out here doing that and a few of other people that I know. But I would say that that is the key to understanding what red flags you're willing to deal with, what red flags you're not willing to deal with, and how to make sure that these people stay or leave your life as soon as possible. But these common red flags that I see that people overlook are that maybe they're inconsistent with their messaging, with their feelings. But that we don't care about that, right? Because we just want them at the table on Thanksgiving with the family, so we don't have to have a bunch of questions asked to us. Why? What are we doing with our dating life? Why don't we have a ring on our finger yet? So maybe they're inconsistent. Also, maybe they're just straight up disrespectful. Maybe you just need a wedding date for this season, or you just want somebody to buy you Christmas presents that you don't even think about how they're treating you. Why would you do this? You're just putting yourself in a terrible situation that's going to loop you all the way back to feeling lonely and going nowhere in life, in your dating life, that is. If they're not inconsistent and they're not disrespectful, they may be lacking effort to where they don't even care about where this goes. You should, they should too, but they just may be being as selfish as you. They're not even putting any effort into the time that they're spending with you. This is this I wholeheartedly believe is what keeps people from these long-term relationships because nobody puts in effort anymore. Everyone just gets what they want out of their date, out of their situationship, and then they just move on to the next person. What if everyone just put in maximum amount of effort for one person And then they were able to see the monumental and gradual growth over time with that one person. This will allow you to have the fun of a situationship forever because that's what it is. Like long-term relationships are just regular situationships. This is like rocket science here, but this is how I broke it down for myself. Long-term relationships were like situationships that continue for 5+ years. And then if you get a ring on the finger, for eternity, till death do us part. But that's way down the road. I just say all that because putting in effort, giving time to somebody is a real thing. And being aware of how you're spending your time with that person is what's going to give you the growth that you ultimately want from your situationship, from that person. I just think we always have to remind ourselves that the short term validation does not coincide with long term peace, prosperity, respect, relationships. They don't go hand in hand. You have to constantly be thinking about what do I want from this person in the long term? If they're not in your 5 year plan, if they're not in your long run picture, then maybe they don't need to be with you at the moment. Maybe you just need to go through the holiday season by yourself. Maybe you need to cuff yourself and figure out yourself before you go and find and try to spend time with someone else. That's the train of thought that helped me find my person, that helped me find what I wanted out of the cuffing season. In doing that, going through these 3 steps, acknowledging the exes, realizing that I don't need to go back to an ex-girlfriend because we didn't work out for a reason. Nothing against her or them. We didn't work out for a reason. I don't need to be ghosting people because that's not going to get me anywhere either. And I don't need to be overlooking red flags. I thought about all this about last season, and this led me to this cuffing season and where I was a lot more intentional on how I was dating, a lot more intentional on who I was spending my time with, how the dates were going, what I talked about. And then I flashed forward, what, 6, 7, 8 months. Now I'm in an 8 month relationship. We plan to be together for a long time, fingers crossed. But I've been able to fast forward and realize that these are the 3 stepping stones that I think that are so essential for this fall, for this winter, for this spring, that keep you having to revisit and stay away from the hot girl summers, stay away from the hot boy summers, and actually have fulfilling relationships. And let me also say this. I think that this is also important because it allows you to like have more stability in other aspects of your life. I feel like when you're able to have just one core partner, you're able to share experiences with them. So you're a little bit more focused on your career, a little bit more focused on your personal life, your family life. Life just is more simple with just one person by your side who's your ride or die, who's always giving you that support. And then you're likely going to be doing that for them too. So it's really just a win-win situation. But anywho, that's all I've got for you today. I just wanted to get on this podcast this week and talking about the cuffing season because it is upon us. And I wish you the best of luck if you're looking for your next partner, or if you're in a long-term relationship and you're revisiting those fun times of getting to know one another. It's going to be an amazing, amazing next few months. You see my beanie once again. It's cold outside. You see my vision, my everything for this season. The season just has a way of amplifying everything. There's this nostalgia and comfortability of exes, this sting of ghosting, and the temptation to just ignore red flags so we don't end up alone. But you have to remember this. Your value is not defined by having a holiday plus one or finding that person just for this cuffing season. The best gift that you can give yourself is peace of mind. And typically this happens when you find that one person and you're able to grow with them over time. As always, I appreciate you for listening to Let's Talk Reality. If you like this episode, please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe wherever you're listening or viewing from. And then if you think someone needs to hear this, text it to them. In the meantime, I'll catch you next week and best of luck this cuffing season. Peace out.